Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2010 National Academy of Engineering Grand Challenges National Summit.
Well, good morning. Good morning. Yesterday was amazing, wasn't it? So many breathtaking examples of potential technological innovations on the horizon, from electronic retina implants in the eye to carbon sequestration techniques for clean coal energy. New technologies on the horizon are destined to create exciting changes in the decades ahead. It's easy to visualize now how at least some of these technologies will emerge from the laboratories of today. It's one of the advantages of seeing firsthand from people who were in the labs creating these technologies. Chuck Vest was clearly on target when he said that there has never been a more exciting time in human history to be engaged in science and engineering. Now, reflecting on all this from about 100,000 feet, there's a sense in which technology is a kind of amplifier of human intentions and actions. That is, in each succeeding generation, a smaller and smaller number of people are empowered through technology to substantially change the lives of larger and larger numbers of other people. Think about the implications of this. These changes may be beneficial, or they may not. They may be intentional, or they may be unintentional. But we are clearly on a trajectory now where some technologies of the future are certain to change the way we live in ways that are so profound that we will have trouble remembering what life was like before they were initiated. There also seems to be a growing political sense of global awareness today of the urgency of addressing the grand challenges of global sustainability, health, and security. The widespread awareness and concern provides an opportunity to focus public attention on these problems on a scale that was not possible even a few years ago. Even though there have been many attempts to do so. For example, and if I can figure out how to make the little clicker work, there we go. Almost exactly 16 years ago, in a speech at Cornell University, astronomer Carl Sagan reflected on a remarkable photograph taken in 1990 by the Voyager 1 spacecraft as it left our solar system on the way to deep space. Some of you may recognize that famous photograph shown here. In fact, it's called the pale blue dot because of this tiny 1-pixel spot in the corner of the picture. This satellite picture was taken in 1990 from Voyager 1 about 3.8 billion miles away from the Earth, which is 41 astronomical units, 41 times the distance from the Sun to the Earth. The bands of light that you see running sort of vertically are an artifact of the fact that the Earth and the Sun are so close together that the reflections inside the lens cause these artificial bands. It's really black space. That little dot is Earth. That was the first time we had seen the Earth from deep space when all you can see is its black surroundings. Let me quote a few lines from what Carl Sagan had to say about this. From this vantage point, the Earth may not seem of particular interest, but for us it's different. Consider again that dot. That's here, that's home, that's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. The Earth is a very small stage on a vast cosmic arena. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. The Earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of our human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. I think this is a powerful statement of why the grand challenges are important today. In fact, the power of the grand challenges to capture the attention of today's youth is quite real. When viewed in the light of the sustainability of our planet and the welfare of humanity, the relevance of engineering and science now often takes on an appeal to young people who otherwise would seem profoundly indifferent to these subjects. I suspect it's about committing oneself to a cause that's greater than self-interest, and it's truly inspirational that today's youth are genuinely drawn to such a cause. Their discovery that engineering plays the role of an essential enabler of solutions to these challenges has opened the door for conversations with the next generation of innovators. And they are the ones whose help will ultimately be required to address these challenges in the decades ahead. Without these young people, well prepared to address complex technological problems with multidisciplinary roots, the challenges will not and cannot be solved. I want to underscore a point made yesterday by Chancellor Katehi from UC Davis, that educating the workforce of the future is implicitly the 15th grand challenge. Perhaps it is the greatest challenge, because it is essential in enabling the solution of all of the other 14 challenges. Without the ability to communicate across disciplines, across time zones and political boundaries, we cannot begin to address the complexity of these issues. Communication in this context is critical. It's much more than just telling others what we see as engineers and what we want as scientists. It's about changing attitudes, behaviors, and motivations more broadly across society. And that's why the agenda today is so important. We begin this morning with considerations of education, and we continue with communication throughout the country. It's difficult to overestimate the importance of communicating with the public about the importance and excitement of these challenges. There is such a gap in the perceptions and interest of today's children in what we do in science and engineering. For example, in one recent NSF-sponsored study of the attitudes of children in elementary school, the researcher, in this case Dr. Deandra Leslie Pelkey of the University of Nebraska, had numerous conversations with children about their views of scientists. She encountered many children who believed that scientists who visited their elementary school weren't the real McCoy. They sometimes complained that the visitor was too normal or too good-looking to be a scientist. However, she reported that the most heartbreaking thing is when the children said, "I didn't think he was real because he seemed to care about us. He couldn't be a scientist because he cared about children." Can you believe that? It's simply breathtaking that their perception of us could be so bad. Obviously, we have a lot of work to do. Now, I've been thinking a bit about what conditions are required to produce large-scale innovations and how these might be affected by our educational paradigm. Note that when our children are in K-12 educational systems, they all learn essentially the same subjects. They're involved in learning history, social studies, English, mathematics, natural science, the whole thing together as a group. They have a common experience. But when they graduate from high school, they go off to college. And when they go to college, they pick a major, and we begin the process of specialization. They might major in engineering and science, or they might major in business and economics, or they might choose some more human-based subject, such as psychology and the arts. In these different domains, they spend 4 years worrying about certain ways of thinking about the world. In the engineering and science world, which I'm most familiar with, we have a lens in which we worry about feasibility. That is, most problems are about whether it's possible in comparison with what we know about the natural world and its laws. On the other hand, students that major in business spend 4 years looking through the lens of viability. In other words, does it produce revenue? Is it sustainable? How much capital does it take to begin? Students who have more general interests might major in the College of Arts and Sciences, and in their field, they would be looking at problems of beauty and truth and love, human motivation, a completely different type of experience. Now, in feasibility, if you, for example, are enrolled in an ABET accredited curriculum, the minimum requirements for graduation in an ABET accredited curriculum are that you spend about 3/4 of your time studying subjects of feasibility, and about 1/4 of your time is left over to learn about the rest of the world. On the other hand, if you're in a business school and you're in an ABET, in a CSAB accredited program, AACSB accredited program, you will wind up spending about half your time worrying about viability, management, finance, accounting, so forth, and the other half is available to learn about the rest of the world. If you're in a more general liberal arts curriculum, say a major in psychology or a major in history, there are no real accepted standards for a minimum exposure across all universities to either the lens of feasibility or viability. What does this mean? This means when students graduate, they don't have the same vocabulary. They've spent 4 years with people like them who have a similar view, and they tend to not be aware of and sometimes minimize the importance of the other aspects of life. This creates a complication in our ability to communicate with each other. Why is it important? Because I believe we're looking to create innovations, and innovations are always things that happen at the intersection of all three. I don't think you'll ever find an innovation which isn't simultaneously feasible, viable, and desirable. And it's that desirable thing that's really hard for us to bring together now, because we always approach innovation we in the science and engineering community approach it from the lens of feasibility. There is much more to be said. At any rate, we have a lot of work to do. Please join me in this panel this morning and in the panel all the rest of the day as we explore these issues. And I want to turn this over now to our moderator, Miles O'Brien.